Starting, and we're live.
Okay.
So, good day to all of our viewers that are tuning in live today. And my name is Rachel, and in a moment here, my husband Rob will be on. There
Hi.
he is. Hi, Rob. And we're both from modernlifesurvivalist.com. We have here today EMF expert Lloyd Burrell, author of the book Beating Electrical Sensitivity, The Path to Tread, and the man behind electricsense.com. He has been praised by many, including Dr. Deborah Davis, whom we really like, a well-known EMF author and expert, founder of Environmental Health Trust. And with Lloyd's expertise in electromagnetic fields, or simply called EMFs, he has been helping restore life and vitality back to people who are sensitive to EMFs, such as from your everyday gadgets like your cell phones, your Wi-Fi, microwaves, what have you, or to just help educate people who are concerned for their safety and their health. So today's discussion is mostly going to be concerned about the social aspects of EMF sensitivity. In other words, dealing with relationships such as people in your family or your friends, those who understand this type of sensitivity and those who don't. Now that I've properly introduced our guest, he's joining us all the way from France. Hi, Lloyd.
Hi, guys. It's great to be with you.
Great to be with you too. So would you talk to us a bit more about the work that you do with EMFs, the kind of help you provide, your background, your history, including maybe a little bit more about your book?
Sure. Yeah, great. Well, where to start? The start is the story is when I had a reaction to my cell phone, which was back in 2002. Just to get clear to people that don't know me. Is I was just a regular guy and didn't know anything about EMFs like most people. Didn't even know, it was a vague memory in my physics class, EMFs, electromagnetic fields. But I really, this thing just kind of hit me one day when I got this strange reaction to my cell phone, totally out of the blue. It just started off as like a weird sensation, feeling dizzy. I wasn't really sure what was happening. I just thought something was going to blow over, because we all get aches and pains from time to time. And I just thought it was, one of those. And this is weird. Started off with that kind of thinking, and then the next phone call it got, well, this actually hurts. And then like the next phone call it got like, this hurts really bad. And that's how it all started. And it really went from there, just its reaction to my cell phone to reacting to pretty much everything electrical, or all electrical devices, things like my computer, because I started to use my cell phone less because I didn't really have any choice. Because I was in this pain. It was simple, put the cell phone next to my ear, get this terrible pain, take it away, and no pain. And so that's was the immediate symptoms. And then beyond that, there was the prolonged symptoms. I noticed very quickly that it was having an effect on my health. And that's to say, I became sort of very run down. A bit like every morning just waking up with this massive hangover when I haven't been drinking. And just kind of these headaches, which are not exactly headaches, but just this feeling like your head's in a vice.
Oh, yes.
And all kinds of weird and not very wonderful aches and pains, joint pains, stomach pains, like a prickly feeling, like a hot head. That was kind of an immediate thing, and that could just stay on, like all day. And so I just realized that any kind of exposure to these devices was affecting me, and that's really how it all started. I didn't know anything about EMFs, and the funny thing is, well, not the funny thing, but neither did anybody else that I went to, so-called experts that I went to consult.
Now, many of us can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm married to the more electrosensitive person in this relationship, so that's Rob right here. And I
Right.
feel, yeah, although I feel the effects of the cell phone, like you being right near my head from the start, I'm generally, honestly, not aware of it hurting me otherwise. But I do, however, have a long history of migraines stemming from
Right.
stress, from negative emotions, mold,
Right.
yeah, in certain foods. So it makes perfect sense to me that, something like EMFs, an immunity lowering factor in our environment, could contribute
Right.
to the migraines.
Right.
And since our brains are electromagnetic in nature, our whole bodies are resonating a certain frequency tuned into the rest of our environment, and natural sources and levels of EMFs, I suspect, are culprit to many, many of our illnesses.
Exactly. That is it. That is exactly it. And we are electromagnetic beings. We don't realize it because we're the way our health is presented. The kind of the model of health. Like if you go to the hospital, you see a doctor. They view the health. The current system is like we're some kind of machine which can be repaired, like some kind of mechanical, like a bit like you repair a car. And then you've got like the chemical side of it, so you can just take pills and you can correct anything just by some laboratory is going to turn out a pill and that's going to cure you from whatever's wrong with you. And that's the world we live in, and that's another big challenge for people when they do discover that they're reacting to these EMFs, is because there is no pill. There's no pill for this. There's no quick fix.
Right. And yet they are given a pill because it makes money to give people pills.
It makes money to give people pills, and I'm not. And there are some pills out there which I know are keeping people alive, and
they're a lifesaver in many, many cases, and
right.
The pill industry is good for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, there's a place in our world for pills, but there's an over dependency on this kind of treatment and on surgical treatments, and that is not, that's what I've learned through this whole experience, which for me has been a fantastic experience, because I started life as what we call a chartered accountant. So I'm from the UK, I now live in France, my wife's French, and I started as a chartered accountant. A chartered accountant is a bit like a CPA, so I was basically a number cruncher. So I used to crunch numbers. I was an auditor. We used to go, it was that's the kind of work. That's what I thought I was going to do with my life. Not that I kind of went into that for a variety of reasons. Well, because my parents were in business, and as a kid I didn't know what to do, so I went into that, and then I realized I didn't like that, so I stopped doing that. About 10 years into it, because when we moved to France, basically because I couldn't practice in France, I got all the qualifications and everything, but I couldn't speak French to start with, so that was a little bit complicated.
So for our viewers, they know that you are tuning in from France, but you don't have a French accent, so that explains why, guys.
Non, je ne parle pas français.
Très bien. Très bien, bro. Tu parles bien français.
That's it. Une petite peur.
Very good, very good. So I was a number cruncher, and this whole cell phone experience, that just totally opened my eyes to another world, and it opened my eyes to EMFs, and it opened my eyes to how our bodies really work, and how to. I began to understand my health in a different way, and it was very hard for a long time, and then I kind of realized, and I used to really, I'd say it was hard, and I used to get pretty pissed off with myself, to be blunt, because it was like, why me? I mean, everything was just going great for me in 2002. Everything was going great. The family, we got two kids. It was a great relationship. The business is going well. I was like living the dream, and then all of a sudden, boom, And when I say I was living the dream, I thought I was taking really good care of myself. You know, I mean, we've always eaten. I mean, my wife's French. She likes cooking, and I like eating. So
Mm.
we've always, you know, eaten well. It's always been important to me to eat well. When I was at university and things, well, you know, no, I didn't. Honestly, I didn't eat that good. You know, I ate burgers and fries and things like that, way too much, and because that's what you do as a student. And
Right.
I had too much alcohol, obviously,
Like,
and you know,
that
all
we
that.
were
You know, I
all.
just lived a normal life, but nothing that much different from most people. It was just normal. But then, as I say, I cleaned my act up very quickly, you know, after that kind of student days. And so I was really taking care of myself, or I thought I was. You know, fresh fruit from the market, jogging down the beach, you know, just and no real stresses in my life. That
Mhm.
was the thing. Because when I went to see the doctor, he said, "You're stressed," and I said, "I'm not."
I know it's ironic. There's just this switch. These things can just totally affect the overall condition of your body. And, you know, hooking you up to some medical device, it could just say that your stress levels are way too high for some reason. So it must be coming from something else. There must be some source. So now that our viewers have gotten to know a little bit more about you, so Rob, give just a quick overview of your similarities with Lloyd as far as your
Sure.
EMF sensitivities go.
Sure. I mean, you know, I was drawn to your site, Lloyd, because it was during I guess, the phase where I kind of identified that cell phones might be part of the problem. And
Mhm.
you're going to find this really ironic, I think. I, you know, when I got sick, it was a kind of a cascade of symptoms that were mostly like digestive in nature. You know, at first it was a weakness, muscle weakness, but you know, the digestive system is a muscle too. It's like smooth muscle all the way down. So those things started to weaken, and I just started to fall apart. So I was looking at things like, I'm sure you know all about these things like candida, mold, imbalances. So that's where I got started. And I was on my cell phone. You can ask Rachel. It was all night. Like I would be researching because I was so anxious and so uh, interested in fixing myself, you know. But they all thought it was this completely aberrant negative behavior to sit and research all the time. I wish, in retrospect, now that I had been doing it on a plugged-in laptop, because I probably was exacerbating my symptoms by having, this constant bombardment of radiation from the cell phone.
Right, right.
And for those who don't know, we'll probably get into it. But if you're familiar with this EMF's effects and the studies, it's messing with your heart rate. It's messing with your cell on a cellular level. So if your body's trying to heal, and especially at night, you're giving it this negative stimulus. So the similarity is that you just start to feel puny, is what my dad likes to say. Like, I just feel puny, like I can't do the things I used to do. And for me, it was really upsetting because I couldn't eat things.
Right.
Uh, did you ever have that problem? Like, did you get food sensitivities at all?
Yes, I did. I had all that, and in fact, I've always, well, I say not always, but I had a bit of what I call a dicky stomach since, like, before that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when you look at the research, there's something which is very well known in the MF research, and it's some research which is initially done by a chap called Frey, who was a naval engineer, and he did the research in the 1970s on the blood-brain barrier. And he found, these effects, and the blood-brain barrier is basically this membrane that protects your brain.
Right.
Has various functions, but it stops the toxins going in. And what we know is that these EMFs, like cell phone radiation, that it attacks the blood-brain barrier.
Mhm.
And but what we don't know, but what we think is that it affects the digestive system in the same way. And so it creates like these micropores, and that's, you're talking about candida, which is linked to leaky gut syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot going on with these EMFs. There's just, you know, there was a time when it seemed every kind of illness, like there wasn't a day went by when I didn't learn that there was some illness or disease which was linked to EMF exposures. That's how long the list is. It is just phenomenal because, as you said, Rachel, it affects our cells, and basically we're a collection of 50 trillion cells, and it affects our DNA, and the DNA is like the blueprint of our cells. So it affects us at a very fundamental, foundational level. So then everything else, you know, because all these body parts, organs, etc., are all composed of cells. So when it's affecting our cells and our DNA, it's affecting us in every way that is unimaginable.
Hey Lloyd, let me jump in there and we can get on the social topic right there, because what you just said with well, it's the same with mold and candida kind of things, and it's really amazing how long that list is. It's like dizziness, fatigue, you know, muscle weakness, brain fog, you know, and there are things that, like you said, everybody gets aches and pains. So my mom is a nurse, so I was just like calling her every night, and I'd be like, Mom, you know, I have this, I have that. It would be crazy things like this part of my head hurts, you know, and now my, you know, I'm getting, it feels like there's literally holes in my intestines that I feel. It was just like things like that, and I showed her this list of things, and she's like, Rob, I thought you were more intelligent than this. You know, this is obviously like someone trying to sell something or something, because they put all the symptoms that everyone gets all the time. And I'm like, Mom, you know, actually, now in retrospect, I'm thinking about it, it's like, well, yeah, I think everyone is being affected by this to some extent, and that's why these things crop up. But how do you deal with somebody who comes at you, for instance, specifically? What do you say to somebody who says, you know, this is just a generic list of symptoms? What is the social response to that?
What do I say? Well, you know, the thing is, it might surprise you, but I don't actually talk about this particularly to people. So I don't go around, because I used to a little bit at one time. And then I realized that, you know, because I get off, because obviously I love talking about this, because it's just so important, and because for a whole lot of reasons it's important for everybody, and because I've got intimate knowledge of something which there is obviously a degree of frustration, because you understand that this thing is really dangerous and can be really dangerous, and everybody else is just walking around with a cell phone on their ear. You know, like, the worst thing for me personally is when I see small children with a cell phone, using a cell phone, and that literally, it's like twists my heart.
Right.
It makes me feel really bad, and it makes me feel really bad because I feel like going over and telling the parents, but I know, because I used to do that kind of thing, I know that that is not the answer, unfortunately, and that's why I started the website. It was just really because, you know, I'm actually a fairly private person. So, and then here I am, you know, I got this website, I'm doing videos and talking about something which is fairly intimate. So, you know, like, go figure. But it was just the right thing to do, and that's why I started with the website. So to answer your question, how do you deal with that, is I don't actually, unless somebody asks me specifically about, you know, EMFs, and most people won't anyway. But if we're in a situation, you know, for instance, if somebody comes into my home, then I'll say, I used to have a sticker on the door that did this, and there was like a sticker with a cell phone and a red line through it, but we painted the door so the sticker got lost, anyway, I don't have it anymore. But when I was like really sick with this, you know, the sticker was on the door. But even now, you know, I'll say to people, usually, if they're coming into the house, I'll say to them, look, can you switch your cell phone off? But if they get into my car or I get in their car, then I always say that to them.
Mm.
And I say that to them because, you know, Faraday cage, and it's a lot worse in a metal enclosure, and so that's when there will always be, nearly always, a conversation about this, because I've said, you know, can you switch your cell phone off? And they go, why? And so I explain, and that, you know, but apart from that, then the only people that know are really, obviously, my family, and you know, like friends, like fairly close friends, because we, you know, we go to their house, they come to ours, and you know, these people are great, because even now they still, I mean, I'm not affected by it anymore, touch wood, but even now they're still switching off their cordless phones, and like, and the thing is, their behaviour's changed, so they're still on the cell phones and all that, okay, but you'd be surprised what a knock-on effect all this has, you know, even in this kind of very limited, you know, in where I live here in France, like I say, what I do on the internet's one thing, and what I do in my own life is something, and I've learned to, you know, that is a much healthier way of dealing with it, because otherwise it's like, you know, like some religious fanatic. It's like, you know, those people you meet and all they want to talk about is Jesus and he's great. And okay, yeah, you know, no problem.
Yes, especially
you know,
if they have no background.
No problem with that, but just don't ram it down my throat.
So I know that for many who are electrically sensitive, the answer for them is isolation. You know, going to, you know, some place called Green Bank, West Virginia, or, you know, there are different EMF havens all across the United States and all across the world. But what do you say about that? And because from my perspective, you know, part of the energy that will restore your overall health comes from, you know, being around other people who love you and who make you happy. And that's the reason why, to me, isolation is not always the answer, but understanding and choosing wisely who to be with. Such as my husband marrying me, I guess. To understand it better. So, you know, I mean, as far as the people you are surrounded with, your close knit of friends, do they actually understand your situation, and or, you know?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's a great divider, you know, because anybody that's really my friend, then, you know, it's clear that, you know, I just don't do EMF. I don't have a cell phone, and, you know, I've got a pretty radical view. That's what how most people see it about EMFs, and you know, and how I live my life. And you know, my real friends, they accept that, and they don't have, there's no problem with that. And then you get, but
that's awesome.
That's not everybody, you know. And those people that didn't fit in that category, I don't see those people anymore, because you know, that's the way it is, unfortunately. You know, it's so yeah, that there is that side of it. But to just answer what you're saying about the isolation thing, for me, it's not the way to go. To, you know, I mean, and I don't think, I'm not sure that it's how most people are dealing with it. I don't think so. But I do know it can create isolation, and I do know it's a challenge because of that, because of this.
That just kind of happens, right?
Right. You know, how do you live in the 21st century? Because like EMFs are everywhere. What do you do? But that's the thing. There are lots of things to be done, and it's not like overnight you're going to suddenly feel better. It doesn't work like that. It takes time. It takes, you know, a long time. Even doing the right things, it takes a long time. And some people, you know, just don't go about it in the right way. And so, yeah, and so some people feel the need to go live at Green Bank, or, you know, down in a cave with a net over their head or whatever. And I'm not criticizing that.
Well, that, right?
But what I'm saying is that long term...
I wish I could, actually.
Long term, it's not the answer, obviously, because long term, it's not a life, you know, and life's to be enjoyed and shared. And, you know, for me, my family, particularly my wife, she was always a great strength, very, very supportive, and not at all judgmental about and she knew, because we'd already been together like 15 years before this thing hit me,
Mm-hmm.
So she knew I wasn't
Right.
putting it on.
You saw the difference, right? That you
Right, she knows me,
thing
and she
happened.
saw how it affected me, and so she just like totally supported me in this. But obviously, um, there were times when it was very difficult for her, because that's the thing. It's difficult for both concerned. It's always like when anybody's got my mother had cancer a few years. She passed away now, but and it was very difficult for everybody, and that's how it is. Illness is difficult for the person, and it's difficult for those people that are close to them. It's really difficult. But it's living in isolation. Going off to I don't know where is not the answer. That I am sure of. And maybe in the short term you can get some relief, but long term it's just not the answer.
We could all have a vacation to Green Bank, but not live there.
Right.
It's ironic. I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother, but most of our grandmothers have passed away anyway. But I've noticed that if you tell other people that you've got a common, well-known, documented illness like cancer or some other disease or disorder, they are so supportive of it because
Right.
it's documented and it's well accepted. But if it's something like this, or even something like a mold allergy, which actually Rob and I have developed, which led to overall immunity going down, and same with sensitivity to EMFs, they don't quite understand.
No, they don't. And people judge harshly, and people that are electrically sensitive are kind of the lepers of the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing is people feel threatened by this information that you put at them, that in some way their cell phone could be harmful to their health. That in some way the microwave oven could be harmful to their health. In some way, all these devices that they use, that people are addicted to, could be harmful to their health. And I think deep down, that's the problem. Is there's a lot of people are frightened about this. It's fear, and
it's like,
and so be it, and it makes it harder for for people that are suffering, because you don't get. I mean, I'm not a sympathy seeker, but it's just that's the way we're made. If you sometimes just getting a bit of sympathy, it would have made me feel so much better.
Right.
If I could have said, "Oh, I've got Parkinson's or something recognized," and then people would be, "Well, but it's so yeah, it is hard to deal with for a whole load of reasons."
Right.
The ones you can bring up, like I usually mention chronic fatigue, because that's a symptom of something else. Like chronic fatigue syndrome, in my opinion, is not a disease; it's a symptom, and probably even MS and stuff, because MS is like the myelin sheath, getting attacked by, autoimmunity. So if we could just have a general term, like there's these autoimmune people out there that are dealing with that. I think it's all related. I mean, do you think that's pretty much, it's related, each one?
Well, I have a different view, in fact.
Oh, really?
I don't actually like these labels, because, there's like 6 billion people on the planet. Everybody's different, and we're trying to fit everybody in these little boxes, in these little pigeonholes with these labels, and it just doesn't work like that. Right. And, I don't even like using the term electrical sensitivity, because again it's totally misleading, because as you said, Rachel, the studies are telling us that everybody is electrically sensitive.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that everybody's cells have been affected by this in some state or form, and everybody's DNA has been affected. Everybody's been affected. Now the difference is that some people feel it, some people can't.
Right.
And so,
or some people deny it, and some people don't.
Some people deny it, yeah, and some people don't. And the thing is, when you realize that you are having symptoms and they're related to these EMFs, like with me, so it was just anger to start with, and there was also denial. I didn't want to admit it, and I just tried to carry on because that's what I've always done, and because most things just work out because your body can heal from most things, and that's what it does over time. But you know, this was like just going on, you know, and I was in denial for 2 years.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's these labels I don't actually like, and you know, when you actually look at these labels, the thing is, what you got to ask is, you know, how does this label serve me? And really, it doesn't. What these labels serve are like the pharmaceutical companies
Right,
who make drugs for all these different, you know, illnesses. But they don't actually, because like when you go see the doctor and he says to you, you know, he does all these tests and everything, and it lasts, you know, 2 months or whatever. I'm not talking about electrical sensitivity. I'm just talking about anything. Imagine, right? You go see a doctor, and then he sits down in his white coat, and he looks you in the eye, and he says, "You've got cancer." And that is just like, I mean, how do you deal with that? Geez, this guy, you know, this really clever guy who's done all these studies and he's a doctor, and they've done now, you know, all these tests and everything, and I've got cancer. I mean, my God, what do I do? And you know, and that's the thing, because there's all these diseases. I mean, it's okay if it's a disease which, you know, you can be treated, but if it's not, you know, that science considers that there's no treatment, there's no answer, you know, then what do you do?
Right.
I guess I was more saying that, you know, as a point of reference, if somebody needs something to latch onto, and I was saying like more on the social side, like, yeah, and they might not understand your, they might not understand your like holistic view, which we agree with.
Exactly, and that's it. For that, it's fine. But then for anything more than that, that's as far as it can serve you. Yeah, but anything more than that, that idea in the bin. And really, in terms of healing and dealing with this thing, then it's not. It doesn't help you.
No, CFS, like I said, I think it's fake. Like it's just like, if you have, like, I've overcome CFS. I don't have that. You know, I don't have any of those things. Those were symptoms. You know, that's all I'm saying. Is I think fatigue itself, it's just a symptom. You know, everybody gets aches and pains, but some people get ones that last for weeks. I couldn't walk. You know, I wasn't a disabled person for those weeks. I just couldn't walk for weeks. So then you can overcome it. It's a hopeful view, and that's what I love about your view. I just heard it in your last interview. You know, you said the holistic approach, and I say that's a hopeful view. We're beings of energy that we can rise above this. Like, we've really recovered. Like, just turning off my cell phone, or not, you know, keeping it in airplane mode all the time, we only use it in cases of emergency, has basically cured us, and we made a safe haven at home to sleep and to spend most of our time. And that really goes the furthest, I would say, than any treatment. You know, just having a safe haven at home.
Sure, it can. Yeah. It's very important. Yeah.
So it's a combination of things that we did in order to heal ourselves. And I know, Lloyd, from reading from your, you know, materials, I realized that you do the same thing. You started out with diet when you found out you had sensitivities, or, you know, just generally things that didn't make you feel well, and you didn't know where it was coming from. So you started with diet, same with us, and then the next thing led to EMF avoidance. In your opinion, why is or was nutrition not enough for you? Was EMF avoidance more important, or, you know, or was it just a combination of things?
Well, no, it's it's like I get up in the morning and I was just like hungover. I was like, have I been to bed here? It was like I was more tired when I was getting up in the morning than, you know, when I went to bed. And the thing is, I did like most people, you see. I didn't really take the bull by the horns, and as I said, I was in denial, and so I didn't really take active steps. I just kind of pretended to go away, and I pretended it wasn't there, and it was there all the time, and I was being exposed to these EMFs in my home all the time. So I stopped using the cell phone, And I never actually had Wi-Fi anyway, because it was like, this is 2002.
Lucky.
But yeah, I had, like, what I realized was, because I go into the kitchen to have lunch or whatever, and I just get this enormous headache, and this was going on for years. And then one day I actually got around to buying a meter, and I was shocked because I realized it was this cordless phone that was
That's the worst.
directly behind where I sat. So it wasn't even in the same room, but it was in the. And the thing is, I thought I knew all this stuff, and I did know a bit, but I wasn't going about it sort of scientifically, and I was just thinking I knew things, and I didn't. And that's why the approach has to be, it's not like, oh, do I do nutrition, or it's like, it's just like, I got to get out of here, I've got to do something about this.
You feel
it just got worse and worse and worse, and I just was looking for, what can I do? So, no, okay, let's just buy a meter. I don't want to see that meter, because I'm frightened that that meter is going to show that there's a real problem in my home, and I don't want there to be a problem. And so I went and bought a meter, and I bought the wrong meter, of course, because I just bought the cheapest meter I could find, because I wasn't interested in learning about all this. I just wanted the solution quick.
Right.
And as I say, and that was it. I found I got this cordless phone, and then so I eliminated that, and that's how it was. And it all kind of followed through from that, in dealing with the four kinds of what I call the four kinds of EMF exposures, which is dirty electricity, which is magnetic fields, which is electric fields, which is radio frequency radiation. And that is just like the absolute step one. Just doing that and having the meters to measure all that and dealing with those exposures. So understanding, measuring, and shielding eventually, ultimately, maybe, I say maybe, because the shielding really is only ever a last resort. And again, that's the thing, a lot of people, they just think, oh, I've got a shield, I've got EMFs, I need to shield. And they don't measure, they don't understand, there's no kind of scientific approach to it. And they end up, creating a bigger mess of the thing than if they'd not shielded. And so that's really, there is an approach to have, and it's doing all the EMF stuff first, that's for sure. And then beyond that, it depends on the individual. But it is the nutrition, that's for sure, and it really depends where you are. But as I said at the beginning, I was a number cruncher, and then what happened to me was I started learning about EMFs, and then I realized, oh, actually, it's not just EMFs, it's energy. It's energy, because all EMFs are just man-made energy. And then I realized I hit onto I was reading different books and stuff, and consulting different people, alternative health practitioners, and I just realized I could really tune in to my body's energy, and that's how I kind of move my way forward, and with detox and cleansing, and just this. It's not like a healthy lifestyle. It's just it's a total. I live a completely different life, and I am a completely different person to what I was in 2002.
So thankfully, yoga is increasingly getting really popular in the West and all over the world. I'm a yoga teacher myself, and so people are slowly becoming more aware of subtle energies coming from their body, coming from other places on the planet, even spirituality and faith, even the mind-body connection especially. So even if they aren't aware of their negative symptoms that they're getting from EMF radiation, they're at least theoretically aware, kind of like myself, who's not overly sensitive. I think there's hope for people to understand the situation better, just because of this open awareness, of that science does involve things we don't see, and symptoms may come from things we don't see, things that we actually made ourselves. So, and I'm glad to hear that, I'm glad that you are able to tell your story to us and to people who are listening, because you're human. You started from where most people are right now who don't believe in these things.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were
Exactly.
never like this from the beginning,
No,
and
I wasn't. I
very
wasn't.
nice to hear that and comforting.
Yeah, and somebody said to me the other day, uh, why did you choose a spiritual path? I said, I didn't choose a spiritual path. It was just, like everybody, it was just I put two and two together, and it was I would have to have been an idiot to not have seen it,
Right,
because
it's
that's
right in
just
your
where
face.
it all led me. It wasn't, you know, um, and yeah, and it's just the most, I say, I now, from having gone feeling anger about this, and having this kind of victim um, relationship with what I was going through. I now feel blessed. I feel just, I'm just so fortunate that I have this knowledge, because there are all these people going around, with these cell phones to their ears and just living these crazy lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not one of them. And, the thing is, when you've been through something like this, which is, there's a lot of pain, and then when you come out the other side, and and there's no pain anymore. It is just top of the world. It's just like being on top of the world. And it's like, and that's not to say, that I don't have, things now and again, aches and pains like everybody, of course. But I can deal with them, and it's no big deal. I've got clear on the whole thing.
Right. And I think also things to celebrate, with today's knowledge on EMFs. We've got figures like, neurosurgeon Dr. Jack Cruz. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's, kind of well known in this area too. He talks a lot about the EMF's effect on your suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain, you're affecting your biological clock and your circadian rhythm. And so that means that it doesn't just affect people who will recognize it as a problem. So
Exactly.
it affects every single person. If you use your gadgets at night, fluorescent lights at night, it will mess you up. And your circadian rhythm is so important, not just for waking up and falling to sleep. It's for your overall health, and it will literally give a number on the days of your life. So that kind of thing. So that's something to celebrate. There are people who, like yourself, who are leaders in this and who will share their experience and their expertise and knowledge. And they're not just people who some of us might be, who are just people who are intuitive people, or people who are just yoga practitioners. There are people who are in the science field who are recognizing this as something worth it to look at, actually something really necessary for everyone to look into.
Yeah, because to give some perspective on health, is that it's not all about EMFs. That's not the only thing. It's not the only health challenge we have, that we can have. And the way I look at this, I use an analogy called the toxic barrel, and that's to say there are many things which affect your health, many, many, many different things. And it can be the greenhouse gases, it can be the paint on your walls off gassing. It can be, from the plastics on your floor covering. It can be from the mold on your, bathroom ceiling. It can be from the food you eat, all the chemicals, the pesticides, the fertilizers and everything, the RNGs, etc. And there's just so many toxins, really, that we're exposed to. But from where I'm sitting, like the EMFs, what sets them apart is the way I see it, and I'm not making this up. It's as the study done on this. It's like EMFs have I call them like the mother of all toxins. They have the potential to be the mother of all toxins. As to say, with EMFs, it's not just 2 + 2 = 4. It's like 2 + 2 = 10 or 100 or 1,000. Because, when people get electrically sensitive, they are some people can be so sensitive that they are reacting to, like, EMF levels which are just, there's that many noughts after the point that, it'd take me a minute to say them, It's very, very hypersensitive.
Right.
And so there's this effect, there's this cumulative effect with the EMFs and with everything else, because the EMF, because it's all like a toxic soup. So it's like you get all these different toxins, and then you introduce EMFs in it, and it like supercharges it. And that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important for everybody to
Exactly.
take heed and understand this message and do something about it for yourself and for your kids.
Absolutely. So we've got 15 minutes left, and so Rob, do you have anything you want to ask? I know you had a bunch there.
Yeah, I do have a bunch. I don't know. I gotta choose the. I guess. Well, I just want to like agree. Sound off that I totally agree with you on the toxic barrel thing, and I think that it is a cumulative effect. Obviously, I could, if I flipped on my cell phone, and I have done this because I perceived it as an emergency or whatnot, I'll feel it in my, heart right away, and I think the heart is a big thing because it's electrical. People with pacemakers can't even have cell phones, because it could just kill them because it interferes. So, I mean, if your heart is electrical, it's going to be affected, right? I mean, so, but the toxic barrel is a great thing because there's chemicals, there's mold, and there's cell phones for us, and those are the things that we're really concerned with. But I wanted to, getting back on the social thing, it's like social combined with the science. We've been having a lot of problems expressing our what we've learned about EMFs. Because we have nephews and things like that, and we try to encourage them, like our brother and sister-in-law, to protect them from those things. You can't just live in this EMF soup all the time because it might have an effect that you don't even know. So I send them what I perceive to be pretty good information or collections of information, but I have trouble finding the right resource for them to actually heed. Like, I usually go to this site called emfanalysis.com/research, and it's just a good collection of about probably a good 100 studies or something that show, that there's an effect, and it's not just cancer. A lot of people get on board on the cancer thing, but they won't get on board with heart disturbances or pains. So what is your go-to resource if somebody is actually listening?
Well, that's the easy one. The go-to resource is Electric Sense.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Of course.
About your sections on your site and everything that have
Right. The thing is, there are lots of there's lots of great resources on this, but really, it's not a question of we're lacking the studies. We're not lacking the studies. The studies are there. There's thousands of studies. The problem is, really, for me, what I kind of figured out a long time ago, it's more of a communication problem. And that's really and that's why I start doing what I'm doing, because I just want people to see, well, look, I'm just an ordinary guy. This happened to me, it could happen to you. And again, and that's why, even for nephews and so on and so forth, and family and uncles and all, unless somebody asks me this thing, then I don't talk about it, because you cannot help people who do not want to be helped. That's the bottom line. No matter who they are. So if it's your immediate family, okay. But then everybody out of that circle, then you're just wasting your time. You better spend your time helping people who do want to be helped. And that's what I do. And my website, that's what I do. And I'm fairly blunt now about that. Because, life's too short for me to waste my time and waste other people's time with us. If they're not ready for the message, then that's okay. Then I'm out there, and those people that are, open to this and want to be helped, then I can help you. Here's information, and here's what I did, and there is a way out.
Right. It's a good way to spend your energy, to say your message in front of people who actually will want to listen, or who are desperate to hear the the information that you're putting out there instead of defending yourself and constantly trying to make yourself appear to be sane to these people, you know. So you'd rather expend your energy that way than the latter.
Exactly. And believe me, it's very easy to become obsessive with this thing. And I mean, outside of Electric Sense, you know, outside of like running a website which talks about this, because it is, well, it's my passion, this thing, you know, that's why I started it. And the passion is not how dangerous EMFs are. That's not the passion. The passion is getting the message out to help people. That's what I'm passionate about. And so the danger side, I've kind of stepped back from, and I've had to step back from Electric Sense. The thing is, it's like when something's your passion. I mean, I can work like all day and all night, and I've, you know, I never really worked all day and all night, but I put in some, you know, a lot of hours on my website, believe me, on different things.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it is running a website. There's always stuff going on. I mean, even when you've got like no traffic, you've got, you know, all kinds of technical things, and I'm not a techie person, and you know, like site getting hacked and all this, and then, you know, you do some update and it doesn't work anymore, and all this kind of thing. And, you know, and then outside of that, as soon as you start getting traffic and you've got people, you know, commenting and so on, and I've got a lot of people commenting, and I'm very thankful for that, but I can't, you know, reply to everybody anymore. And, you know, I've had to take some distance between, you know, because otherwise, you know, this thing just takes over your life.
Right.
And again, it's
like
just
missionary work, though.
yeah, it's great. It's great.
You survive, but you also, you know, are running this thing, and you feel passionate about it and passionate in helping other people too. But you can only do so much. But having a blog is definitely a great way to talk to as many and help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So what you guys are saying is turn to technology to. No, I mean, as long as it's
plugged in, right?
Right, it's plugged in, right?
Not wireless, so.
That's one of our biggest messages, just to, you know, we're a little bit more activist about it. We will say, you know, we're punks, you know, we're a little, we wanna like spread it. We want people to start thinking differently. We're activists, and that's what our main message is. We want to give like little, you know, people like little hacks. That's like the big thing right now. So we say, you want to sleep better, turn your cell phone off. I've told that to about 100 people this year. Just turn your cell phone off at night. That's all you have to do. You'll sleep better. And I know it's true. Like, I know that's going to help them sleep. You know. But on the activism side, do you think that there's any chance that there could be a scaling down in a similar way to like how they've demonized fossil fuels and that sort of thing? Are they going to scale down on EMF exposure at any point? Is that possible with the right kind of awareness and activism?
Anything's possible, but I don't know if it's possible in my lifetime.
Right.
Wow.
You know, I know there's like a dark side to the EMFs, which I don't really talk about. Not because I'm trying to cover it up, or I mean, I do talk about it, and I have talked about it in blog posts and everything. It's just not my focus. And you know, the dark side, really, what it boils down to is money.
Yeah,
and
we're on top of that.
The EMF technologies that are the driving force of many Western economies now, because we're in this, you know, huge financial crisis everywhere you turn. And, you know, governments are able to sell off these licenses to cell phone companies and just pull in billions, you know, at the drop of a hat. So it's not in their interests at all to make these dangers known. And the second thing is in terms of national defense, the truth is these technologies are used massively, you know, in different ways as weapons, and because they are incredibly powerful, and so there is, you know, just for those two reasons alone, I'm very doubtful that this, you know, there will be any real progress made on that. But there is progress being made, lots of great initiatives, and I support all the progress that has been made. But my focus is on helping individual people that want to be helped, because I realize that is the best way for that fits with me. You've got to do what's right for you. And also the thing is, when you're electrically sensitive, you know, there's only the only thing to do is look after number one, and that's what I say to people. It might sound egotistical, but you know, if you don't look after yourself, you cannot help other people.
Right, totally.
And getting into the activist thing is, for me, is just not who I am, and it can be a tremendous drain. And you know, it's not the, you know, I don't get a kick out of that at all, and some people do. And so you've got to ask yourself some serious questions before, you know, if you are getting involved with that. And you'd be surprised how many people that I speak to that, you know, are affected by these EMFs, that, you know, are going down this activist road. But you'd be surprised when I put this to them, you know, after a while they, you know, they come around to my way of thinking, and they, you know, they ask themselves these questions, and the question is, does it really serve you? And that's, you know, that's what you have to ask yourself.
I think we ourselves, I mean, not we ourselves, but people who are still needing of help or needing of healing in their own bodies don't really think of that as much. But I'm pretty sure that they would be very happy for somebody to speak for them on a bigger platform, you know, just like you. I mean, I think a lot of people consider you as a hero, and you might not think of it that way because, you know, they just love that somebody's out there speaking about this instead of them. So in a way, it's not technically activism, but they are seeing you as somebody who's on the
Exactly, and I know people do see me as an activist, and I don't have any problem with that. But I don't consider myself an activist. And you know, thankfully there are people out there that are activists. And for instance, this last week in France, they're introducing the smart meters. And I got a thing through saying, you know, write to your local senator, and I did it. And so that is an activist, you know,
to
thing to do. And I did that, but it took me 2 minutes, you know. But it's not my focus.
Right. So we've got so we need to wrap up here. It's a few minutes before we end, but we absolutely appreciate your being here with us, and I can actually see that there are many viewers right now tuning in live, and I'm so happy right from the get-go, from the beginning of this broadcast. So I'm very, very happy and thankful for that. So maybe, hopefully, we can get you back on, maybe, depending on your schedule, but there's so much and endless topics to talk about this. We haven't even covered the surface of the social aspect, I'd say. But so for just to give a recap, this is Lloyd Burrell of electricsense.com. And my name is Rachel, and this is Rob of modernlifesurvivalist.com. So you should be able to see this live feed recorded on YouTube on the same link as where you're viewing it now, all recorded, and it should be on our website as well, and maybe on Lloyd's website. But we are absolutely thankful for his time today for joining us, and we hope to see you in the future, next time.
Thank you so much, Lloyd.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rachel.
It's Burrell, right? Burrell.
Burrell.
Well, it's a Scottish pronunciation, but most people say Burrell, but I actually say Burrell.
Burrell. I heard you last time.
I'll get that right next time.
It's a muscle thing, Burrell.
Yeah. But, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the invitation. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And I support you, you know, in what you're doing. Very happy to have spoken to you today.
Okay. Before we end this, we've got 2 minutes. So what would you say to your viewers as far as, I guess, a quick way to better their health? What are the top 3 things you would say that you think they
So the thing, I always say don't get obsessive about EMFs, but if there's anywhere where you do want to get obsessive about EMFs, it's in the bedroom. And because you really need to create a safe haven to sleep in. Your home should be a safe haven, but really in the bedroom. And so things to look out for are anything electrical. You want to eliminate anything electrical in that bed. So if you do have anything electrical, then make sure you unplug it before you go to sleep, and that includes things like lights, clock radios, you know, computers, obviously, that kind of thing. But just to explain something very quickly is, if you have a bedside light and it's next to your bed, and with the light switched off, then there is still an electric field. Okay. and the electric field permeates into the room and into your body, and that's what you. And when you're the reason why it's so important is to focus on your bedroom, is because nighttime is when your cells rejuvenate, regenerate, detoxify. You've got all kinds of hormonal reactions going on, like creation of melatonin, which is really important, which is a lot of people consider that the master hormone, and the studies tell us that EMFs impact melatonin production. So you need to get really obsessive. If you're going to get obsessive anywhere, do it in the bedroom, and also get rid of anything metallic in there if you can. And the other thing is when I say that, and then people think, oh my God, you know, I've got a metal bed, and the thing is, everything you do with EMFs, you need to move forward, you need to progress, you know, every day if possible, but it's baby steps all the time. So you just do what you can every day, bit by bit, every day, you know, and eventually you will get there, and you will create this haven, and you will create these conditions as you do all these many things, which you know, which are on my website, which are there's a free report which you can subscribe to, which is like a starting point. There's newsletters and stuff like that. But over time, as you do these things, then, you know, as you guys were saying, as you do these things, then your health will improve, and you know, you will begin to feel better. And it's not an overnight thing; it takes time. But yeah, just start with that in the bedroom, and then eliminating obviously wireless sources in your home. You know, do you really need that cordless phone in your office? You know, you can just have a regular wired one like we used to have before, and it works just as well, if not better. And also get rid of that microwave. You know, or if you do have a microwave oven, you know, that's one of the worst sources of EMF exposure.
Right here, but we don't use it.
So anyway, is that my 2 minutes?
You'll find all these practical tips on Lloyd's website, electricsense.com. So if this past, you know, 3 minutes was information overload to you all, you can go to his website and read these things in detail that will help you improve your health. So thank you once again for joining us. And
thank you, guys. Thank you, Rob. Rachel.
Thank you for your work. Amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.